Artificial intelligence is reinventing business as we speak. You can either get up to speed or get left behind. The choice is yours, and really, it's a no-brainer. Join Cognitive Path founders Geoff Livingston and Greg Verdino as they chat with AI experts about the latest ideas, trends, and technologies that are creating the future of business today. This is No Brainer.
Hey, everybody. This is Geoff Livingston with the No Brainer podcast. My colleague in crime, Greg Verdino, is not able to join us this week due to his child graduating from college, which is always a momentous occasion for any parent. Get those kids off the payroll. Anyway, just a joke. But for those of you that are joining us for the first time, we do appreciate it if you punch that like button if you enjoy that podcast. Do subscribe, leave a review if you could. And of course, subscribe to us on YouTube as well. That's really helpful. And sharing the podcast is also very helpful as well. And with no further ado, I'd like to introduce our guest today, who is another bald brother of another mother, Mr. Pete Erickson. He's also the founder of Modev, which is an organization that has built a very strong reputation creating events through the years, including this year's Agentic AI. And Pete's actually on the cutting edge almost always. I'm very excited to have him on because we're going to talk a little bit about what's going on within the AI space from a pure business standpoint, what's going on with marketing, sales, how companies are doing, how they're generating leads, and how that ecosystem might be changing. Pete, how are you today?
I'm doing well, man. Thanks for having me on. I was excited when you asked me to come on because you and I always have lively conversations, and happy to hear about your colleague with a child graduating. I've got two on the payroll. I've got a 7th and an 8th grader, so I'm keeping it real. Keeping it real.
But yeah, well, definitely got years ahead, right?
Amen. I'm savoring it. You know, I started late, and kind of just savoring it all because it does go very quickly.
I personally cannot wait to take vacation, not during summer and not during winter or spring break.
Right. Yeah. You got to have those shoulder season vacations, man. Those are good ones.
Yeah. The Mays and the Septembers, October.
Yeah. May and September. Come on.
The best.
But they're incredibly busy months when you've got kids in school. It's like you're locked in. You are locked in.
Oh, it's crazy. It's crazy. And I can't believe we haven't had you on here yet. Like, I mean, it's just not.
I know, man. I've been feeling like I've been knocking at the door. I'm like on the glass, like knocking. Hey,
you live like just 10 miles from me. It's crazy. We talk all the time.
I know. We should be doing this in person. My goodness.
Yeah, we should just mic up. Actually, we should have done that today, but
yeah, we'll do that again. We'll definitely do a follow-up.
You posted this week, you and I have been talking about this a little bit on the back channel, but about how the ecosystem's really changing as far as generating leads. And we've been seeing this on the content side as well, by the way, where, that typical lead generation, publish a ton of blog posts, get the SDR out there, dial in for dollars, show up to a ton of events, get your exhibit space and spam the bejesus out of people. Yeah. All this stuff isn't working. And some people are blaming AI. Some people are blaming the algorithms. You this week wrote the lead industrial complex is dead. Please explain your perspective on this.
Well, and I've been feeling this for a while, but one thing about event organizers, we typically are barometers on the market, and because we talk to so many people, we talk to a lot of people on the buy side that are actively looking at technology. We talk to a lot of people on the sell side that, want to come to the conference because they're trying to drive their business, right? For many years, that was a kind of pretty tried and true formula that we could attract a sponsor to come to our event and we could give them a lead scanner and we're an independent event organizer, but somebody could scan a few hundred leads and end up with some really high quality results. And we've watched it happen kind of again and again. But I think as time has gone on, there's a few things at play here. And that is that the game is sort of up with regards to email sequencing and being captured in somebody's top of funnel. And so invariably what happens is we tune out those kinds of messages because we're just so used to getting them now.
Oh man, I just delete.
But when it started, right? When all this started, it was kind of novel. Like, oh, I'm getting an email from this person. It seems to be relevant to me. and I'll get back to them, and then I forget, and then a few days later they get a reminder of me, like, oh yeah, I wanted to do that. So when all this CRM driven sequencing, and then the Apollos and Zooms and the others of the world that could Zoom Info, where you could go just harvest tons of leads. So I would say it probably peaked in I don't know, maybe 17 or 18. And it was driven largely by the SaaS software market.
The rise
But I
of
mean,
the
how many
go-to-market person, right? The
Yeah.
TTM
So you got
launch, right?
your go-to-market person, your growth marketing person. And then it's almost, what's interesting is it's split off where the chief marketing officer might oversee it, but it also split into the CRO role, the chief revenue officer role, because all this really these are very tightly revenue focused things. And then the marketing person can focus on the company marketing overall. The CMO could take on those roles. So you saw some splitting of duties. But I think when I say the lead industrial complex is dead, it's because it doesn't seem to be working well. We've talked to so many sponsors and they're really struggling. And we've watched a lot of turnover in the marketing teams within these sponsors. So the person that we were talking to last year is no longer there. They're at another company. So there's this shuffling of the chairs, with companies feeling like it's their team's fault, or it's some kind of lack of capability on the marketer side. But my heart goes out to a lot of marketers because they're trying to do something that doesn't work anymore. And they become experts at it, right? They might have all their Salesforce certifications, Zoho's, HubSpot. We're on HubSpot. They've learned the tools. They know all these motions. And you mentioned content, they're producing content, pushing content out there. SEO. So let's talk about another big change. And that is that we've used Google AdWords a lot for our conferences. We're seeing a definite decline.
Is that because of AI and answer engines?
Yeah. I mean, I go to Perplexity now for almost everything I'm doing. I don't go to Google. In fact, when I Google, like a lot of times it's just habit. I go into the Google search bar. I'm like, okay, but here we go. I'm not going to be able to find the information. There are AI summary tools up there. That's had a big impact on people that are advertising on Google. You got a lot of independent businesses that suddenly their traffic has gone way down because Google AI is summarizing things. But it's just kind of like Google had a monopoly on search. And so it was kind of tried and true. But things change, times change. If you look at Twitter, right? Back in the day, we used Twitter a lot for events. It was a very effective event advertising tool. And now it's completely just absolutely, we absolutely will not use X. I haven't talked to anybody that still does.
It's really amazing how badly that's gone for Elon and company, but it's his own fault, I would say. What's interesting about what you're talking about with Google in particular is they got dinged pretty heavily this week when they announced their quarterly earnings, in large part because it's what you're talking about, basically that their cash cow is dead. So what we've really seen is a wholesale shift, if you would, in the marketing ecosystem. Some of it's AI, some of it's the buyers just tuned out and their kind of filter algorithm has changed, right? Where they basically no longer want to see it. I would actually argue too that some of it's the email systems. Like, for example, I noticed just this past recent update of Apple, right? I do have my junk email in Apple and me. Sorry, Cupertino. But the reality is that you used to see every single email. Now they've got it filtered pretty tightly. Primary, transactions, promotions, updates.
Promotion.
Same thing with Google. All these email software companies are now using AI to filter out the garbage. And that's really causing a huge amount of issues for marketers. But I actually think it's going to be a big issue too for organizations like Substack, for example, because when you subscribe to somebody, sometimes you get auto-subscribed to everybody that they recommend if you're not careful. So you end up with that huge Substack email bomb every morning. It's a nightmare, right? Like I end up deleting a ton of them. I just need to go in there and unsubscribe. That being said, I do see that these software filters are now moving stuff out. So, what's the answer is really the question. Like, what do people need to do to evolve? Is there a role that AI can play in that? Is it just we need to build relationships?
I think that it is incumbent on companies to remember how to build relationships. And, AI can help you with that because they can help you with personalization and things like that. And that's all fine. But at the end of the day, you got to build human relationships to build a business today. I'd say I also, this morning, I did some analysis using my ecosystem health index reporting to look at why did OpenAI buy Windsurf versus Cursor or Replit. Cursor and Replit had more subscribers to their developer platforms than Codium. But what Codium did really well, they hyper focused on the enterprise, and they built tools. They had over 1 million subscribers on their platform, but they had 1,000 that mattered, 1,000. And what they were able to do is they were able to build relationships with 1,000 enterprise teams, actually human relationships, not just so. At the end of the day, all of this transactional, numbers-driven goal that companies have, at the end of the day, may not really matter. You also could be made irrelevant by technology. And so I think a really critical aspect of marketing today has to be human. I think that bodes well for events, but it's going to change how events work, because you can't just have 1,000 booths and hand somebody a lead scanner, because that piece of, even though that's the muscle that a lot of event planners and event organizers use, and they're very used to that, but I think that
it's the revenue, right?
It's also, and here's the thing. Relative to the event space, what's happened is during the pandemic, most of the event infrastructure was bought up by one company, Blackstone. So Blackstone Private Equity went and vacuumed up all these major players. So Freeman, which is the event contractor for most hotels and conference and convention centers, you need to build booths anything goes through Freeman's hands. The other major one is the audiovisual with Encore and PSAV got bought up. The other big piece is event software infrastructure with Cvent. Blackstone owns all these. They essentially have a monopoly on event infrastructure. So what does that mean? Well, it means costs have gone up dramatically for event organizers. So the cost of that booth for the event planner and the sponsor has gone up tremendously. The value of the lead has gone down because that model doesn't really work anymore. So you've got incredible amount of pressure that squeezes the middle. I know that squeeze inherently well as an event planner. And it's a model that doesn't work, because all the risk kind of falls back on us to go get those venues, pay those expenses, feed everybody, buy incredibly expensive coffee and all that stuff. So what do we have to do? We have to move anything off our plate that we can, that is infrastructure, that is kind of old model driven. And we have to put in place relationship building infrastructure. So, helping people with one-on-one meetings, helping companies tell their story effectively in a way that is educational versus sales, where they can build trust and build relationships. So what are we doing? We're taking out sort of the lead game, and we're putting in a human relationship, trust-driven game back in its place. And that's, in many ways, it's a harder model, because you really are focused on probably 20% of the audience that we used to focus on is the most important, and bringing them together.
Right.
And then watching that magic happen with human relationships. So the answer for us, to people writ large out there, you've got to build relationships. You have to be trusted, especially in the era of AI, because quite frankly, nobody believes you on your software. You have to show up. You have to educate. You have to prove yourself. You have to build trust and build value over time. That's the answer for us. And I think it's the answer for much of the market that we serve.
Question for you. Part of that too is the influencer game, right? And that gets to the content side of it, because that's all a big ecosystem and the book game and getting yourself out there. And here we are on a podcast, even talking about this. But the thing that's interesting to me with it is, you and I had a private conversation about this, but a lot of friends are starting to write books. I've waited and I've written books before, but I personally feel like with this game right now, the way it's going with relationships, it's not a good idea with AI for me. And let me just qualify that. I'm not saying it's wrong for other people that are listening, but for me, it's a bad idea because the market's changing so quickly. For example, if I was writing a book that was coming out now, I would have missed agentic AI probably, because of the whole Salesforce announcement at Dreamforce, right? So I don't think it'd be timely or valuable, and that would erode trust, because the book is out there to really prop me up as a person, as opposed to being of service or helping people out with a real idea that could be beneficial. That's not to say there aren't books out there that do that. There are great business books out there. But with that in mind, there is a whole cottage industry of people that just write books about the topic du jour, and then they prop themselves up, get a ton of speaking gigs, go out there and speak, demand maybe even fees in some cases, and then find themselves generating leads for their consulting business through a venue like maybe one of your past conferences. How's that changing in this?
It's interesting. I would say that I watched several books come out on conversational AI in 2022, right before and during the release of ChatGPT, which completely changed the conversational AI landscape. And so, I would say that the speed of technology is such that if you had written a book on AI last year, you probably wouldn't have talked about agentic AI. And now it's a category. I do appreciate and like how the market has evolved. But I think that there are folks that I would, some shout outs. I would give a shout out to Noelle Russell. She wrote the book, Scaling Responsible AI. She has been talking about this since 2015, right? Since she started speaking on our stages. She also is an incredible technologist. She has built thousands of AI applications herself. She has the AI Leadership Institute. We love leaders, like Noelle. And there are several others, so I don't mean to leave anybody off. But I do see the AI influencer game, and it kind of gives me the heebie-jeebies to see some of the YouTube influencers out there that it's like, hey, it's the biggest thing, and these are the top 10 things I'm doing today, and I'm going to change your life in 30 minutes. Watch this video, and you're going to be, that kind of stuff is kind of like, all right. And I'm super careful I intentionally don't post those kinds of things because I'm not trying to be that. I'm not trying to be a soothsayer for artificial intelligence. The one thing I'd say that, that I do, I think for me, what I realize is when I think I get typecast a lot as an event planner.
Sure.
As somebody,
you're much more than that,
Well, it is kind of funny because most event planners, they're really ecosystem builders. That's what you have to be first. And then within that, there are lots of expertise. So almost think about like a professional sports team, right? Whether it's baseball or basketball, you've got positions that that's their expertise. So they may be a pro basketball player, soccer player, baseball, or whatever. But I think it's easy to just get typecast as one thing. But the event planners out there, they have to know the ecosystem really well, or aspects of the ecosystem really well. And I just got the notice this morning that my HubSpot, I'm up to the next subscriber level because our database is growing. It grows every day. People join our events, our mailing list. And, it makes me smile because watch the ecosystem grow. So what my job boils down to, and this kind of gets back to this lead industrial complex game, is can we enable others to grow healthy ecosystems, to grow their business, and not just be looked at as a passive source of leads? Because if we're looked at that way, or we let somebody come to our event and just treat us that way, with the collapse of the lead industrial complex, and I know what's going to happen with those hundreds of leads they got, they're going to drop them into a sequence. They're going to try to qualify them. And the results aren't going to be great. So we have to not kind of let that happen anymore. We have to support our partners in ways that really align with making sure that they're viewed as thought leaders, making sure they're connecting with their ideal ICPs, their ideal customer profile targets, and then bringing those qualified companies to the events. Our job is actually getting narrower in terms of what our goals are. Our purpose is actually to bring those AI leaders that are acquiring software and services from across the enterprise, to bring them together in a trusted setting. Like, that is our number one goal. And it's not because we want them to be fish in a barrel. We actually want to give them a space to learn and a space to connect with one another in a trusted environment where they're not just going to be scanned into a lead generation tool and then sent information. They're looking for information as well. So on the buy side, there's so much need for clear information because they're just getting inundated with inbound marketing, with sales calls. everything's magic right now. That's one of the challenges is, right? Oh, our
There's-
platform fixes.
I think that's the problem with the hype bubble, generally speaking, right now with AI, is that there's just so much garbage out there. At least the clients I'm talking to and the customers I'm counseling, they just can't tell what's real and what's not and what's going to impact their business. And also, so much of it's about, hey, our technology can do all these things that it can't yet, which have nothing to do with an actual business. There's a real disconnect in Silicon Valley right now. And I suspect, and you probably have some insights on this, I suspect some of that it's because this is what gets funded and this is what doesn't get funded, which actually has nothing to do with what customers want to buy.
I think you're spot on. And I think that a lot of it is a numbers game. And so when things just become a numbers game, you can start to miss maybe some of the most important aspects of your go-to-market strategy and your ecosystem strategy. And I'll go back to Windsurf being valued at $3 billion and acquired by OpenAI when they actually had they had fewer total subscribers than some of their competitors that also interacted, that also leveraged the OpenAI platform. It wasn't just the top line number. It was the quality of the connections that they made and how they treated their enterprise buyers from a human standpoint, not just from a technology. They did get some technology things really right, but they also built relationships with 1,000 enterprise teams. That was it. That was the difference. So can you build relationships at scale? I mean, when you've got $30 million in a Series A, which I guess now is almost like a seed round, but if you got 30 million Series A, you got a lot of marketing budget. You can make a lot of noise. But what happens is, and so a lot of companies do, they hire a seasoned CMO that's done this before, comes in, the normal things, they do all the things. Well, those aren't not effective anymore. So you're not going to get to that ramp that you need to get to your Series B and to your Series B. That's a big gap. I mean, the same gap exists between seed and Series A. So, I would say founders, you have got to hire relationship builders. You've got to get face-to-face time with your most important customers. I had a founder that raised a $7 million seed last week telling me we just have to get to 20 customers this year, and just kind of like, okay, good goal, because that's going to get us to our Series A. But let's talk about what problem are you solving? What's most important to those customers? Let's get deep. Let's go deeper than just the number.
Be affiliated with you, right? What do you offer them? What problem are you solving?
That's right. Maybe you get to 10, but what if you get to 10? So it's like, is it 20? Is that really the magic number? Or is it, what if you got 10 that were like way more important than maybe the 20 that you could get if you just turned it into a number game? So this is kind of like a general attitude, I think, that's happening how things run, but there's a better way.
Yeah, I think one of the things that Palmyra with Writer, what they do really well is that they market effectively to a problem. I don't know if they're as good as other solutions. They're very good, but
Writer.com?
Writer.com, right? And that there, they've done, Habib, she's done a fantastic job driving the product marketing with that organization. And it makes a huge difference when you're able to connect with customers out the gate and talk to them specifically about the challenges that they're facing and how your solution may or may not help that.
I think they're a good example. May has spoken at some of our events in the past. She was on our panel at CES last year.
She's dynamite. She's
awesome.
When you meet her, it's amazing.
She's one of 10 kids, and I am as well. So we share that in common. Although she's the oldest and I'm the fifth. So she's the responsible one. One thing that they have done incredibly well, and I'd say that it's similar to Codium, they have unlocked generative AI in the enterprise in a way that others haven't. Also, a very interesting thing, I think, happened on the way to market for them. Whereas Writer.com became a generative AI tool for writing, right? They have transformed into a productivity suite for enterprises that some of it's about leveraging enterprise content in new and powerful ways, leveraging AI. And that's been the evolution that we've watched Writer go through. And they've done a great job. And I think that's kind of very similar. So they've got a similar trajectory to, I think, what Codium did on the code side, or excuse me, Windsurf on the code side. I think Writer has done on the content side. It's also interesting, Geoff, just kind of speak about that market as a sidebar. We've watched several companies sort of start off in areas and evolved into the same sort of model where they're competing now with one another because on their way to market through different avenues, right? So if you take Glean, for example, that I'd say kind of like, I say they're kind of like the Zapier of enterprise content.
Yeah.
And then you've got like Perplexity. So Perplexity has a massive enterprise play in organizing information. Glean is a massive enterprise play for organizing information in enterprise. Writer is a massive play for organizing information inside the. So now all of a sudden these companies have evolved. They came out from completely different pathways, but now they're basically competitors inside the enterprise for helping enterprises identify, manage, sort, present their legacy information inside their organization and create new content and information. So that's a fascinating space, but I will go back to this, and that is what May has done well. She's built relationships with major enterprise organizations. She's a thought leader in that space. It's a very human thing, right? Writer is an AI company. I would say Glean is the same way. I met several Glean team members at South by Southwest. We announced Agentic in the Glean house activation at South by, so I got to know that team. They have hired several really good pros when it comes to market engagement and business development. I mean, seasoned business developers, right? And guys in suits and that you would recognize from, other enterprise sales organizations. So here you've got a very hot AI company and lots of really brilliant folks, but then you've got, these companies know what they need to do. They need to court the enterprise in a more traditional way. And the kids just rely on top of funnel. So again, Geoff, I think what it comes back is AI is driving the need to really connect as human beings and to get together. And the way that we're going to do that is we're going to scale our events way down. We're not trying to we had close to 5,000 people pre-pandemic. Fun. It was fun. People from around the world. I've got friends from all over, which is wonderful.
Different era though, right?
Like
even South by Southwest, right? South by Southwest I hear is dwindling now.
It's really changed. I was really shocked. I think, so it was 8 days this year. It's going down to 6 next year. When I started going, it was a full 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Some things are complicating a little bit. They don't have a convention center for a few years. They're ripping out the old convention center right now. They're building a beautiful new convention center downtown. It's going to be the center and the heartbeat of Austin, but that's not opening until 2028. So South by Southwest, it has some challenges, but what they've done is they're building satellite South by events. So Sydney and now Europe. So their model's changing a little bit. And by the way, those are shorter events. So I think the mega events are still going to happen and they're still important, but they also have additional challenges. If you look at organizations like CES, one of the best, I think, tech events in the world, but now with international travel being a challenge coming to the US, right? 40% of their audience comes from outside the US, right? It kind of changes the value proposition for what they're trying to get done. But I think what CES is doing very well is they're really thinking about the human being and trying to transition from being a place where you come figure out what to buy to being more about where you can come and figure out who to be and what to be. And I think that's a shift that you're going to see coming to conferences around the world, because it's just not enough to stand up a huge expo floor and to have people come scan your badges for a couple of days and feel like you're going to get the result again, because what happens after that doesn't work the same anymore. So conference organizers are under a lot of pressure to deliver. But I think the good news is that people still want to get together. I love meeting in person. I love going to in-person events, but for us, we're going to really filter down as much as we can. Who needs to be there? What are they trying to get done? And who do they need to connect with while they're there? So our job changes. It changes from really infrastructure before, so physical infrastructure. It really changes to human infrastructure. And that's the big shift. And that's why I developed a framework called trust-driven growth, which is all about this. It's how do we interact? How do we connect with the people that matter the most so that we can actually build valuable relationships and grow our businesses. And probably going to take some time to really get this message home. The marketers out there, they have a muscle that they're so used to flexing related to events and lead scanners and numbers. But when the rest of what happens after that isn't as effective, it's really our job and incumbent upon us to help give them better tools and better pathways to market.
Yeah. So let's wrap really quickly with like where your events are at today, which events are available to people, and where can they find you and your consulting gigs.
Thanks, Geoff. Really appreciate it. So I have 3 primary event properties that I'm running right now. So Agentic is this fall, October 27th to 29th. It's going to be at the Hyatt Regency in Crystal City in Arlington, Virginia. And that can be found at gotoagentic.ai, co-located with GovAI Summit, a conference. And again, very focused on the success of AI acquisition teams, both at Agentic and at GovAI. So we believe that if we really serve the folks that are trying to drive AI adoption inside their organizations and give them as great of an experience as possible, then everything else it'll unlock the rest of the event. So GovAI and Agentic, October 27th through 29th, you can go find govaisummit.com and get the information there. We also run a cool tour called Generate. That can be found at gnrt.ai. And we are going to 4 more markets before the end of June. So we'll be in New York, June 13th. New York. We're going to be in Chicago, Ottawa, and Vancouver, but all before the end of June. And you can get all that information at gnrt.ai. These are one-day kind of AI adoption accelerators, and they're really targeted to enterprise leaders out there that are trying to have as much success as possible with regards to deploying AI solutions. Gartner points out that 75% of AI projects are failing, right? So we want to help AI leaders close that gap. These are one-day accelerators with real world case studies on implementation and success of AI. And we're proudly partnered with FuelIX/TELUS Digital. So TELUS Digital is part of TELUS International, which is the largest telecom company in Canada, by the way. So that's why we're going to 5 Canadian cities on this tour. So we're excited about that tour. And again, it's an opportunity to come to a one-day deep dive event and get a lot of really good information and build real relationships with human beings. So those are the events I'm running. And then stay tuned for announcements around CES and what we're doing next year. Last year, we ran the AI House. We also ran and they're very popular with standing room only.
That's Kathy, right?
Yeah, so Kathy Hackle was one of our awesome co-chairs and moderators, as well as Sandy Carter and Andy Hewell and Susan Sly, and Noel Russell was a part of that event as well. So we have awesome things to share soon on CES 2026. We are also involved with NRF and helping them with their strategy around AI and agentic AI and retail. So we have a lot on our plate. And then I'm busy building the ecosystem, the Tech Ecosystem Institute and the Ecosystem Health Index reports. And that's where I think we can really dive in deep and provide support for companies. So I am available for consulting on that front and being an ecosystem health and growth consultant. So folks, if you want support on that, it's such a key part of the market going forward. We have to think about our platforms now as whole ecosystems, and that's our go-to-market, I think, imperative today. So Geoff, it's been fun chatting with you. This is all stuff that's near and dear to my heart. And you've been a great supporter of this community. If folks don't know, Geoff has been doing many of our interviews on our thought leadership stage. You can find those on our YouTube channel at Modev, youtube.com/Modev. Geoff, thanks for having me on. And I hope this has been a helpful conversation for a lot of folks out there. Times are changing, but there's a lot of opportunity out there.
100%. Thank you, Pete. We'll drop all those links in the show notes as well. And thank you all for listening to the No Brainer podcast. Again, please punch that like button, share it, subscribe to it wherever you are. And if you can leave a review, we'd greatly appreciate it. We do take suggestions if you want to mail us something at nobrainerpodcast.com. And with that, we are out of here.
Nice.